Red Skelton's final TV special was never aired until now. I'll be honest, when I first heard that title, I thought it was one of those old Hollywood myths people repeat because it sounds too perfect. But then I started digging into Red Skelton's last years, and what I found felt strangely emotional. Because sometimes the final goodbye doesn't happen on screen, it happens quietly, off camera. Most people remember Red Skelton as the smiling clown, the rubber face, the man who could make an audience laugh without saying a word. But that's only half the story. What surprised me most was how deeply people loved him, not just as a comedian, but as comfort. For millions of Americans, he wasn't just entertainment, he was part of the house, part of Sunday nights, part of childhood. And then suddenly, the era changed. Television got louder, faster, sharper. Variety shows faded. Comedy became more cynical. And a man like Red Skelton, warm, innocent, theatrical, started to look like he belonged to another time. That happens more than people admit in Hollywood. One decade, you're untouchable. The next, executives call you outdated. And yet Red kept performing. That's the part I admire. He didn't become bitter in public. He didn't chase trends. He didn't try to become somebody younger men wanted him to be. He stayed Red Skelton. Even late in life, audiences still showed up to see him live. They still laughed. They still knew the characters. They still waited for that familiar spark in his eyes. Because real connection ages slower than fame. Now imagine this. A final television special. One more chance. One more curtain call. One more moment where America sees him not as a memory, but as himself. And then it never airs. No big announcement. No dramatic scandal. No grand finale. Just silence. Honestly, that hit me harder than I expected. We always think legends get endings. We assume there's a tribute episode, a final bow, a standing ovation. But many stars don't get that. They fade while the machine moves on. Red Skelton knew how cruel timing could be. He had already lived through personal heartbreak, changing audiences, and the brutal speed of show business. Yet whenever cameras were near, he gave joy. That was his instinct. Even when life wasn't kind, and maybe that's why people still care. Because he represented something rare now, gentleness without weakness, humor without cruelty, fame without arrogance. There was innocence in what he did, but it wasn't naive. It was chosen. That's different. I watched clips of him years after his peak, and what struck me wasn't the jokes. It was the face of a man who understood people needed relief, needed laughter, needed softness. He gave them that. So when people talk about a lost final special, maybe they're talking about more than a TV program. Maybe they mean the ending he deserved. One last moment where America paused and said, "We remember. We still see you. Thank you." Instead, history often leaves those moments buried. But audiences don't. That's why names like Red Skelton never fully disappear. Networks may move on. Trends may move on. Generations may move on. But warmth stays. And in a strange way, maybe that unaired final special tells us more than any broadcast could. Because it reminds us that fame ends, but love from the audience? Sometimes that lasts much longer than the spotlight.